I'm going to assume because you clicked on this that you know already that this video is going to have tons of spoilers in relation to Jordan Peele's Us. If by some chance you didn't realize that, well, it's time to get off now. If you want a spoiler-free review, I've linked it below in the description. In this video, I'm going to discuss just my thoughts, theories, anything that I think to break down all of the layered messaging that was in the film. I mean, it was crazy deep, and I'm sure I'm going to miss some of it. So I want us to continue the conversation in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your theories, and you know what? If I'm wrong, awesome. Correct me. If I'm right, tell me I'm right, and then build on it. First off, I love how Peele is breaking the rules of horror films. It was said that he gave his cast a list of horror movies that they needed to watch, and one of those included Funny Games. Now, there are two versions of Funny Games. One is German, one is American. They're both directed by the exact same person, but I think the German one from 1997 is so much better. It is very powerful, and it is awesome, and it breaks a lot of the horror movie tropes and rules that have been set up. And no, I'm not talking about the rules that are set up in Scream. You know, ooh, I'll be right back. No, none of those. I mean, they do, I guess they do touch on a few of those, like that the virginal person in white is the one to survive. She is the holy, the pure one, and she is, you know, well, she doesn't get killed. The randy teenagers, they do get killed. Sure, yes, those do fit within a lot of horror movies. The one thing in Funny Games is that they have a woman in white. She is the heroine. And if you look then at Us, Adelaide is in white, or at least lighter colors at the end of the movie, especially, well, actually throughout the entire thing. She is wearing maybe a light beige, if not white, outfit. And she is the heroine. She is the one who we are obviously, you know, we're rooting for, especially when we see the tethered or the others come up and faced. And it's just that dichotomy of them looking at each other, and Red is obviously in red. Adelaide is now the heroine, but it's revealed at the end that she's not, that she is actually the tethered who swapped places. And so I love how Peele breaks that rule right there of, you know, we're led all along to believe that the one in white, yep, she's the pure one, she's the good one, she's the one that we need to root for. Nope. So I have a question about the Thriller t-shirt. How did Red get that t-shirt? I mean, I understand the fact that they talk about that there's a government experiment going on, and that there are clones down below, and that they, you know, while they share bodies and they look identical, the soul can't be shared. But how did she get the Thriller shirt? I mean, it's not like things just materialize out of nowhere. And I mean, even if you see the dad as he's playing the whack-a-mole, he's not actually holding a mallet or you know, one of those soft little nerfy things that you pound on the whack-a-mole. So, I mean, they obviously have clothes. They are clothed by whatever government experiment is going on, or were clothed before it was abandoned. But how did she get that so that when Red goes up into the fun house, which is not a fun house, stay away from those things. That is just poorly labeled. But when she goes in there and encounters Adelaide, they are truly mirror images. I don't know where she got that. Maybe it's unimportant, but it's something that did pop into my head of like, oh, well, okay. Something other of note, which is an Easter egg that Jordan Peele had discussed in an interview, is that he has 3 Corey Feldman references throughout the movie. Now, there's the obvious one at the very beginning where we see the Goonies tape. But he also, there is a line in there, is "It's our time now." And that's from Goonies as well. So there's number 1 of the Corey Feldman reference. Second, which is still blaringly obvious to almost everybody, is that it's taking place in 1986 on Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. That's exactly when Lost Boys is taking place, even though they call it Santa Carla. Well, I guess they couldn't name it Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz didn't want that named. I don't know, because you know, at the beginning of that movie, they see a big graffitied billboard that says "Murder Capital of the World" or "Murder Capital of California," something like that. So obviously, there's the reference, just the look and the feel to Lost Boys. But then, as the action is happening on the boardwalk, as Adelaide and her parents are walking by, another family says, "Oh, look, let's go over by the carousel. They're shooting a film." Well, that's in reference directly to the Lost Boys. The third one is rather obscure, and it's really it's more of a tangential type of tie to Corey Feldman, and that is the Thriller video, the Thriller shirt itself, because Corey Feldman was friends and was hanging out with Michael Jackson. So there you go. There's the 3 Corey Feldman references. The thought of duality is played out throughout the film, or even mirrored images. And so we see Jeremiah 11:11 in, not only 11:11 on the dude's forehead, but then he's holding the sign 11:11. It's, obviously it's, 2 numbers together that mirror each other, even, well, it's double, 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 double. The time on the clock at 11:11. All of these things. Well, in Jeremiah 11, the whole context of that biblical passage is God is talking to the people of Judah and Jerusalem through the prophet Jeremiah. And God is telling them that despite bringing the Israelites out of slavery and out of captivity from Egypt, they still then turn back to their evil ways. They completely ignore what God did for them. Then we get to verse 11 and what he says in Jeremiah 11:11. Therefore, this is what the Lord says, I am going to bring calamity upon them, and they will not escape. Though they beg for mercy, I will not listen to their cries. In this is Peele saying something about our nation. I don't know what his religious affiliation, if any, is. But even if you take that single verse by itself, it's talking about that there will be a reckoning. There will be an answer to all of the problems that are being caused. And with the extreme trouble that is brewing, there is no escape from it. I mean, think about it. It's almost like a zombie apocalypse where there's no real way out of it. I mean, you just do your best to survive and then you kind of live with it or you die. Now, going back to the Thriller reference in the Thriller t-shirt, I think also there's a clue in that. Because if you think back to the Michael Jackson music video, I mean, all of the craziness happens and then the girl wakes up and she's like, whoa. And then Michael is there to say, oh, come on, let's go. And he turns at the very end of the video. He's normal, but he turns back and he faces the cameras and his eyes are different, showing that he is not actually Michael, or that he has changed and that he is not what she believes him to be. And that's a huge clue for us moving forward, that even though we see Adelaide, that we see her, she's loving with her family. She's very protective of them. She's just a regular mom. There is something deeper, and that she is not really who we believe she is. So then we take the scissors, right? What in the world do the scissors have to do with anything? I mean, if you look at them, when they're split apart, they look like bunny ears. Well, there's bunnies also in the movie. Well, the scissors are kind of like a duality, just like the rabbit ears are. I mean, that they are one, but they are separate. And as they move back and forth, they can cut through things, they can cause destruction. And Jordan Peele even talked about how making ordinary objects terrifying is something he wanted to do. Well, so guess what? A lot of us are not going to look at scissors the same way again. Or there's going to be always this thought of, ooh, right? I mean, Jaws made people not want to go in the ocean for a really long time. Scissors are going to make people question a little bit, especially if you see somebody walking around with scissors. And what about if they have just a slightly off look to them? But that's just normal. And you'd be like, I'm going to watch that person. I don't want to get them. And then think about bunnies too. There is a duality to a rabbit. They are soft and they are cuddly looking and they look like the perfect animal. Now, I owned rabbits as a kid, and I can really relate with what Peele was talking about, because in an interview he mentioned how they scared him. And why? Because even though they look cuddly, sometimes when you pick them up, those back legs are like this, and they have razor sharp claws that will just tear into you. And I mean, so you have this thing that you want to pick up because it's so cute and cuddly, and the second you do, you get destroyed. And maybe that's why Peele had them eating the rabbits, maybe as a payback, that was their only food. I mean, they were also clones, right? That's why, I don't think, maybe the rabbits were clones at one point, but you don't need to clone rabbits. They just multiply like, rabbits, right? That's where the saying comes from, because they get together and they get it on, and then boom, they have a huge litter, and then they just repeat and repeat and repeat. Obviously, Hands Across America plays a large part in this movie as well. I mean, that's the opening commercial, or one of the commercials that we see at the beginning, and talking about, how we can end poverty and homelessness in America. And that's in 1986. And that's what Adelaide, the real Adelaide, sees. I mean, that's what she's experiencing. And I think even her, at one point, her shirt was Hands Across America before she put the Thriller shirt on. And so this is her idea of, connectivity. It's what puts her together. But it also then spurs the, you know what, this is how we take over. And we show that we are in control. We are just, one. We are a single unit and cannot be broken. Well, the funny thing is that Hands Across America, while a good idea as a social experiment, kind of failed, at least in relative facts. I mean, it only raised, I think, like $19 million. And even back in the 80s, while $19 million is a lot of money, to cover homelessness and starvation in America, that's nothing. That's not even a drop in the bucket. So really, it did fail as an idea. That brings me to then the thought of the have and the have-nots. I mean, obviously, those above are the haves, and the tethered below are the have-nots. And as Red is describing to Adelaide what she had to go through, well, when you got presents, I got cold things. When you met a nice man that you fell in love with, I then had to just be with this other thing. I had no choice in it. I had no say in it. It was just, that's what I got. And then when you had children, you were taken care of. And when one had to be taken from you, C-section, I had to cut it out of me myself. That's a terrifying thought right there. And so you definitely have this duality of the haves and the have-nots in their most extreme forms. And then you have the fact that they're tied together in some way that we don't totally understand because the soul is not split. And so even though the bodies are different, there's only one soul. And so who has that soul? Well, I would suggest that those above have the soul. Those below just kind of mirror that. Think about that also in relation to Hands Across America. That was the haves and the have-nots. The haves attempting to take care of the have-nots, even though they totally failed. And regardless of your political stance, because I loathe politics and I just don't care, that it also could be speaking to that. In our current socio-political climate, where we have the narrative that people are coming in who don't belong. They have not. And when they do come here, they are taking from us. They are taking our safety. They are taking our jobs. They are taking our money, our security, our way of life. And so what do we have to do? We have to prevent them from doing that. Peele has also said in his interviews that us is not about race. Now, Get Out was totally about race and a social commentary that he was making with this. But in Us, he's like, no, that's not what I'm doing at all. Now, sure, a lot of America is about race, but he's trying to break out of that box and look at America and who we are as people from a larger sense, not just through one view. So in Us, who controls who? I mean, we see that when they're up above, and then we get the glimpse of the tethered below, especially at the end of the film where Red is really explaining everything that is going on, that you see them wandering around and those below, the tethered, are really mimicking what's going on. But it could also be construed that they, at one point, were created to control those above. I mean, think about it. The government below, they've made this experiment, and if they can control everybody remotely from below with these others, then you can just set up society however you want. I don't totally understand really, though, even in that scenario, who is controlling who, because at times it breaks it. I mean, we do see that Jason is able to control his doppelganger, especially when he spreads out his arms and he walks toward, Jason walks backwards, pushing his doppelganger into the flames of the burning car. And then we also see Gabe, as they're fighting with his doppelganger on the boat, he slams his head down on the boat engine or on the boat itself, and the doppelganger does the exact same thing, smashes his face, then he falls into the water. So in that instance, it really shows that those above have control over the others. But if I think about it from a government control experiment, that doesn't make any sense. But it also then, Red would be able to control Adelaide, and she doesn't. Because, think about it, that Red was originally Adelaide, and Adelaide was originally Red, and then when they switch places, the connection should still be there, but they don't have the control over that. And even the daughter, I don't think that she has the control, or we don't see that. So I don't know, maybe you have a theory on that, or maybe you have a better answer. I don't know who controls who. I mean, it almost seems like for the situation, it works, and we're going to stick to these little rules right here, and then, okay, we're moving on, and there you go. We're just going to ignore the rules or break those rules. And like I said, I mean, Jordan Peele is breaking rules already, so he can break whatever rules he wants. I just think I would like to know, from a consistency standpoint, or even just from a story continuity of like, well, okay, this is why it makes so much more sense, because you've set up a rule and you follow that type of thinking all the way through. I love the fact that Jason figures out, or is figuring out, who his mom is, or who Adelaide really is, that there's something off about her. Now, the first time we really get a good glimpse of this is when Adelaide is killing one of the twins when they're escaping from the White family's house to get the car. She had to go back in to get the car keys, and she is just going ham on that twin, and she's grunting, and she's just kind of this guttural, unspoken type of primal, vocalness that's coming out. And Jason sees that, and he ponders for a second, and he stops. Now, we did get, when you see that, you go, oh, maybe there is something off there. But then it's easily dismissible, because this is the first time he's seen his mom kill anything or anybody, at least that we know of. And so it would be kind of a horrifying thing. And he's already in a bit of a shock, because he's like, well, what the heck? I had to kill somebody. I've seen my sister kill people. The whole craziness is just going on here. We also get another clue that Adelaide is one of the tethered. And that's at the very beginning of the film when they're driving along, and she turns around to show Jason, and she's snapping to him. She is just slightly offbeat. The rest of the family is totally on beat, but she is just a little off. She's not perfectly on. And while it's not so blatant where you're like, oh my gosh, woman, you just have zero rhythm. No, it's just enough off to kind of make you go, wait, am I right or am I wrong? And okay. And they don't linger on it a ton, but they do sit on it enough to make you at least pay attention to it. And then at the end of the film, we are given a huge clue that Jason has figured it out, that he knows that Adelaide, while his mother, the one who gave birth to him, she is a tethered. And you just see him looking at her, and he's working it out. And then he pulls down his mask, and I think that's as a separation, as a protection for him. It is a way for him to slide into his own world, to separate him from her so that she can't get to him or that she can't hurt him. So the White family is the Black family. I mean, now who in Star Trek are the first to die? It's the red shirts. And stereotypically in most horror films, the first person to die is the black guy. And I love that Peele is breaking that rule in this, that he is flipping it around. And you know what? The Black family is the dominant one. They are strong, they are smart, they are survivors. The White family, they are just really bad. I mean, they're a waste of space of humanity, really. I mean, you think about it, they're everything bad that of any color group, any race, it doesn't matter. I mean, they argue with each other, they're mean, they're useless. And I'm glad to see them die, because I didn't like them at all as characters anyway. I mean, even the way that they interact with each other, that they're just vapid, so I was glad that they went, but I did find it funny that they are the one white family in this. I mean, there's not a lot of other main characters within the film, but I love that Peele was like, you know what, we're just going to change the rules a little bit here. Now, this movie is definitely going to hit everybody a little differently. I mean, we all have different upbringings, different socioeconomic pasts or presents, different races, different ideologies, different religions, all of this. So it's going to touch us in different ways. And I love that. And I love the fact that Peele said that he wanted to make a movie that caused multiple viewings, that caused discussions. He wanted people to have this back and forth, this dialogue, to dissect it and to, spout their theories and to learn from each other and to just, butt heads even and argue a little bit to hopefully come out better. And to just, if you have a dialogue, then think you're now speaking with somebody, and that's so much better than just shouting at somebody or not listening and living in your own little bubble. But regardless of our ideals or anything else, one thing does ring true, and almost for everybody, is that we fear the unknown. And that's what he's shown us, the unknown, the other, that there is something else out there, and he's forced us to confront it a little bit in this. I did see this one article where this dude was just hating on the movie to hate on the movie. I mean, he was really pretentious and just using a lot of big words that to make himself sound more important. And not that big words make you important or less important and that you're not intelligent for using them. I mean, I'm sure he's a very intelligent person, but it seemed like he was hating on the movie just to hate on it. because it was a smart movie, and that it was bringing discussion and bringing a magnifying glass to us as Americans. I mean, think about it. Even Adelaide, or Red rather, Adelaide says, "Who are you?" She goes, "We're Americans." Ooh, pointed right there. I mean, that gives us our first clue overall that Peele is talking to everybody right now. He's not singling one group out or another group out. I mean, he's just saying, "Hey, America, pay attention. I'm talking to all of you. I'm talking to all of us." I think Jordan Peele said it best in his South by Southwest Q&A that he did after the screening of the film. And he said, "We're all about pointing the finger. I wanted to suggest maybe the monster we really need to look at has our face. Maybe the evil is us." So what did I miss in this? What theories or thoughts did I get wrong? I'd love to know in the comments below. Let's continue this discussion. Let's continue this conversation. I want to hear your thoughts and theories. I mean, if I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm right, let me know, and then let's build on it. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate your contribution to this and the discussion that we are going to have hopefully below in the comments. If you enjoyed this discussion, please give it a like, share it with your friends if you think it's relevant, and if you enjoyed this talk and what I do, then consider subscribing. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.